I'm going to talk about generative AI in Salesforce, what we've got, and what's coming down the line. Prepare to be amazed by how much there is. So first off, full transparency. Important thing when you're using generative AI is always be transparent about what's been generated by AI. Anybody see anything on there they think might have been generated by AI? So this was my attempt to get AI to render the child from Poltergeist pointing at the telly saying they're here. I think this is a lot more frightening than Poltergeist myself. It really is quite remarkable. I don't know what's going with the hands. There's like weird fingers. Brilliant. That was my experience with all of my images that I tried to generate. But all of my images you see here are generated by AI unless they're screenshots, in which case they were captured by me. So the first thing we got is Service Cloud, grounded service replies. So this is responses, chatbot type responses. You're having a conversation with a customer, and AI will offer a response based on grounding of the conversation that you're in or your knowledge articles. And it looks like that. As you're chatting away, it'll come up and it will say, based on the knowledge, if someone's asking about resetting their password, we found a knowledge article, you can post this, you can edit it, you can say it's not helpful. And based on the context, you could reply saying, sure, I can help you with that. But I hope you could, really. That's very good of AI to offer you up. But yeah, please provide me with your username or email address. So this is AI just saying, yeah, you could say, that one, I don't know, maybe useful. That one feels a little bit simplistic. Say yes. Say yes, I can help you. You'd hope that your service agents are able to do that. Service Cloud work summaries. I think this is a bit more interesting. So this is based on a conversation that you're having with a customer. It'll generate values to fill in case fields. So you can configure those target fields. It will default to summary, issue, and resolution. So it will try and pick that information out of the conversation that you're having based on the words that the customer is telling you, effectively, because it's all about predicting words. And at the end of a conversation, it will come up with a summarization, and you can then choose to do what you need to do with those. You can edit them, you can create a case from it, etc. So that's quite useful. It's basically examining the information that's going in here and just suggesting how you might want to fill in. So I've been slightly distracted because I'm looking out there. It's absolutely hammering down still. I'm supposed to have finished by now, so I'm thinking about walking home later. That'd be lovely. Yeah, so the idea of this is that it's basically, rather than you having to go through and pick out the important things as you're having that conversation with the customer, it's working out all the information on the side and just saying, right, this is what we should include in there. It actually is quite useful, and that will save you some time, I think. Service Cloud also has conversation catch-up. So this is basically if someone's already talking to a customer and then they hand them off, or if a supervisor starts monitoring a chat that's already ongoing. I think this is really great. I'd love it if my bank and everybody else that I talk to when I phone them up actually did that, and they have a conversation summary that goes to the next person. They don't say, hello, how can I help you? Who are you? Tell me all the details yet again for the 5th time of this conversation. So the idea is here, when you join a conversation, you'll get this information. It will tell you who it is, why they're calling, what their problem is. This is a godsend for me, I must admit. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing some of that in there. Similar thing over here. This is when you're coming in as a supervisor. Here's the conversation catch-up. Here's the issue. And again, you got thumbs up, thumbs down. Was this useful? And I'll talk a bit more about that later on when I talk about the Einstein trust layer. Sales Cloud. Cool summaries. So this is AI, so this sounds great. AI generated summary from recordings. It's like listening to your recordings. Apart from the fact that it requires a transcript. So actually I think what it's doing is looking at that text, and the recording is somewhat incidental. You just get a transcript with it. It's English language only, which seems to be a common theme at the moment for a lot of this AI stuff. It relies on English. And I do like this quote, sometimes not generated for lengthy calls. Roll the dice, see if you get one or not. That's awesome, isn't it? I'm guessing that will get nailed down and a bit more quantified as time goes on. Yeah, and that's what you see basically. Create a call summary. And then you get one of these. This is the call summary. During the calls, yada, 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 yada. And it suggests some next steps. And again, you can cancel that, you can save it. Sales Cloud, sales emails. So I wrote a blog on this, but I'm also going to demo this. because this is one thing that I actually have access to. So I've just got, this is a partner SDO, which is a Salesforce demo org. So what I've got here, I've got a contact. So I've enabled Einstein for sales. Einstein sales emails is automatically enabled by that, but I have to give myself a permission set as well. So there's a few setup bits and pieces I have to go through. But once I've done that, on a contact record, if I go into here and I click on email, you'll notice that I've got a little button down here, draft with Einstein. Very cool. So I can also relate it to stuff. I kind of was expecting it to relate it a bit better, given that we should know who the account is. The account is Morpon Brothers. But I have to pick that. And then I can draft with Einstein. So this is slightly prepared to be underwhelmed, I must say. We've seen Prompt Studio and all that good stuff. These are the prompts that I have. I can introduce myself, I can send a meeting invite, I can nudge for a follow-up, I can check in and I can reconnect, and I can have no influence over those prompts. So that is all controlled by Salesforce. None of that is configurable by me at this moment in time. This is the kind of introductory version of it. So if I send a meeting invite, I then get the option, this is a recent addition in Winter 24, then get the option to include information about a product. And it generates the product name, gives me a description. I can add to that description if I so desire. I found that if I left this empty and then hit continue, it still put placeholders in because it really wanted me to talk about products. It's kind of like it really wants you to know that it's a large language model, like there must be a product involved in this meeting. There can't be any other reason to meet. So yeah, again, it gives you placeholders and you need to adjust those as you go on. So when I do that, you can see it bubbling away at the top there. And here we go. First thing it does is warn me. It's generative AI. It might be terrible. Who knows? Roll the dice again. Whoops, wrong one. And this is what it's generated here.
Can you give us a flavour for those of us with 4 eyesight?
Oh, can you not? Oh, okay, yep. Alison, it's great to have a chance to connect with you. I know that as owner of I don't know why they think she's the owner of Morpon Brothers. It's just a contact there. Oh no, title is owner. That's good. You must be busy managing the operations of your retail business, but I hope this email finds you in high spirits. So this, I think, is where it's unfortunate that we haven't got more control over this, because there's some customers in financial services that we have that I need to be very formal with. They will expect me to kind of bow and scrape a little bit. There's others in the creative industries where you can a bit more, yeah, hey man, how you going? But I don't really have that. This is going to generate, regardless, it's going to generate the same kind of information. I'd like to invite you for a short meeting, talk more about our company, our best-selling product called Starter Kit. Have you been considering selling solutions that could streamline and improve your operations? At BrightGen Limited, we specialize, yada, yada, yada. It's banged on a few bits and pieces of extra information, different types of business without discriminating on factors. Well, that's interesting, without discriminating on factors such as socioeconomic statuses or disabilities. You're going to see things like that when I start talking about the Einstein trust layer. And that's the first time I've seen those words make it in there, actually. So that's really cool. And then there's some stuff in there that I need to customize, because this is a meeting request. Doesn't know when I want the meeting, so it's put in there, customize date and time. I'm absolutely convinced that, give it a few months and people are going to start receiving emails with customized date and time in there, where everyone's just got into the habit of, I'll just send, I'm bored with this. And if I don't like that, I can, don't think I can do, I can't do thumbs up and thumbs down here, but what I can do is just delete it. You have to make sure to delete it, because every time you do draft with Einstein and put something in there, I'm just going to continue on that. It just inserts it again, so you can end up with quite a lengthy email that you'd send to someone with 6 or 7 different things that you're asking for. So you can see here we've got customized product description, but this time around there's been customized product name, but there's been nothing about not discriminating about socioeconomic groups and the like. But that is quite interesting. That's the first time I've seen that. So that brings us to the end of the first demo portion. I get back to so that is Einstein sales emails. I've done a slightly more detailed blog with a little bit more information about it, but that's pretty much what you can do with it at the moment. Marketing and commerce, I'm not really going to talk too much about those. It's subject lines or bodies with your kind of brand's personality, or it can do product text fields, and it can do those in bulk. And again, it's English only.
Can I jump in with a question?
You can.
Yeah.
No, you can jump in now. I think that makes sense.
I saw the thing about having like a company tone. And things like, is that based upon previous conversations you sent, so like mails sent?
So the brand's personality and identity is going to be stuff that you set up, I think, in Marketing Cloud. I'm not a Marketing Cloud expert, so I cannot speak to that. When you get Prompt Builder, you will be able to define a tone for a particular type of prompt. So you might have your creative industry sending an email, and at that point in time, you could say the tone should be jaunty. You're going to get that kind of capability.
Your previous communications with creative agency X to learn how you like.
No,
have their own way of.
It's the only way you'd be able to get the AI to take that into account is by sending all that to the AI, because it doesn't retain any prompts and it's not trained against your data. That's kind of the big Salesforce thing. So what that means is every time it's like starting from zero, don't know anything about this. So that is a bit of kind of, maybe not ideal, which again I talk about in the Einstein Trust Layer. So what's coming? That's not a bad picture, I didn't think. Steampunk train coming out of a tunnel with its lights on. Not bad.
That's what you asked.
That's what I asked for, yeah. Einstein for developers. Well, I don't know, I assume we've all seen the announcements about this, but creating Apex, so basically being able to use English words to create Apex code, which is something that I think is very much aimed at entry-level developers. It's the artificial intelligence, it started.
And they paid him 10 quid to come in.
So I think if you're an experienced developer, you can probably write code as fast as you can ask something else to write code in English language. But if you're a bit more of an entry-level developer, then this is going to allow people to get big quick. This is a VS Code extension, and I would say read the terms and conditions. Here are the terms and conditions available on GitHub. First thing, submitted code. This is defined as prompts submitted to the Einstein for Developers extensions and associated code within your project that is used to provide additional context to the model. So when you hook this into a project, basically you have allowed it access to the whole thing. And then Salesforce uses that submitted code, which we have the definition for above, and you are granting Salesforce a perpetual, irrevocable, non-exclusive, worldwide, royalty-free license to use that submitted code. So just make sure that you're happy with Salesforce having access to this. So, for example, in my world, I really don't want to be turning this on for customers and then sending their whole code base off to Salesforce without them having any kind of a say.
I'm not allowed to. My IT partner doesn't allow me.
Yeah, quite right. Quite right. I'm sure mine doesn't as well.
Except with your IT department. Get fire over this.
So again, I am going to jump out and we'll have a quick look at...
We actually have that term because, theoretically speaking, if a developer activates that extension, then they don't have permission to grant access. It becomes a legal matter.
Yeah,
But
you don't have permission. You mean like if I activate it, I don't have permission on behalf of
You are not
No,
authorized
if
to act on behalf of the company,
you
yeah.
just installed VS Code and you installed that anyway, without permission or without knowing that you need permission, Salesforce has access to your code.
Yeah.
They've now embedded it into their LLM, and there's nothing you can do about it at this point.
Yeah.
So it becomes a legal matter.
It becomes a legal matter, but all I think you're going to get is recompense, because that's the thing. Once it goes into the model, there's no way of getting it out of the model. Yeah.
Always work with the assumption that somebody within your organization is going to do this. We found quite a lot that our customer service agents are feeding our stuff into ChatGPT, and they are replying to customers in ChatGPT, and sometimes they tell them
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I've been spending a lot of time telling people not to do this, and I think, 7 times you have to tell people before they take into account, so can't be far off.
In the FAQ for installing this in the beta, it says, will my code get out into the world? I said, no. And then underneath there's all this paragraph that's saying, well, maybe. Sort of.
Something that looks like your code might get out into the world, but it will be generated completely from scratch. It might just look like it. So this is what it looks like here. We've got the Einstein, so you get a little Einstein, kind of Halloweeny Einstein on the sidebar when you've got it all connected and configured. And if we paste something in here, write a class with a single method, the method receives a list of contact records and sorts them by email address in descending order. And we ask that. Be interested to see what we get. The great thing about demoing generative AI is that you really don't know what it's going to do. It's going to error. Let's try that again.
You have to rehire all those developers.
Luckily, I have some screenshots of some things. There we go. So this is quite interesting, I think, because it's what it sometimes will do is I've only asked it to generate a class, so sometimes it'll give me a Java class, sometimes it'll give me a JavaScript class. This time it's given me a method, and it's assumed that contacts.sort sorts them by email address. Worth a shout. Doesn't, unfortunately, but you know, what can you do? It's also decided to debug them out. Helpful. Might not be what I want. But that's the thing. You've always got to look at what this does. It's you ask it to do something. You've always got to check what it does and make sure it's appropriate. Yes.
Well, maybe not understanding the principles of the whole ChatGPT and this, but essentially, if you're an enterprise and you give your customer service agents access to ChatGPT and you give your Salesforce people access to this, you're signing away an awful lot of legal rights.
It's essentially, yeah, you're agreeing to it being used to train. If you're using ChatGPT, you're agreeing to it being used to train the model. Yeah.
Which, and worse, is what I've just heard, in terms of, it's a bit like we all, when Facebook came out and said we own all your stuff, that
So-
was Facebook's approach in the beginning.
So the thing is that
Then Facebook changed themselves, saying, no, all your stuff is yours, we don't own it. So there was
So GPT, OpenAI are very clear about you own everything that's generated from it. But what it does, it goes in to train the model, and that may then come out as a response based on the training. So it may choose to generate code that looks exactly like the code you put in. But it won't plagiarize it. It won't copy it straight out. It will just get there by accident almost.
if you're advising, as you will have to, clients,
Mhm.
enterprises, will their legal departments force the enterprises to say you have to turn it off?
An awful lot of legal departments are telling enterprises to turn it off at this moment in time.
Clarify two things. So I think this thing only applies to the code bit. For your core CRM applications, there is a zero retention policy.
We'll come into that. We'll come into that in the Einstein trust layer.
That means is that
Don't give it away, Anoop.
I'm just quickly answering that. Keir will cover that in detail, but the zero retention policy means that the data that you're sending to OpenAI servers will not be retained by OpenAI and will be used for training. So for the core CRM and commerce and
Also, if you use the API, OpenAI's API, they say they don't retain any information that you give them to train the model. But in this case, Salesforce are very clear they will retain that information to train the model.
So, but the bottom line of all of this is, as a collective, as a responsible consultant with your enterprise clients, at the moment, you're saying it's okay to use this stuff.
I would say for the enterprise clients, they should be reading the terms and conditions. I don't think I would be advising them whether it's okay or not okay. I think that has to come from their legal. I would not want to be on the hook for saying this is a good thing to use or this is a bad thing to use.
If you were advising them,
If I was advising,
what do you have to say?
if
This is a really serious
Here,
point.
think about this question, right? He's asking, do you want Salesforce to knock on your door tonight, or do you want your clients to knock on your door tonight?
in all honesty, I always think with these kind of things, Salesforce has access to all our code anyway. If they really wanted to do anything with it, anything nefarious,
Yeah, but
because it's all in
wouldn't want to
Salesforce.
compromise their clients. They wouldn't want to compromise the
It
enterprise.
doesn't matter. The thing is that it's not on purpose. Someone might then issue a query to GPT to generate code that does the same thing that you're working on,
Yeah.
and get code that's very similar to yours. Not necessarily exactly the same, but still something that your client paid for, and now someone else is getting for free from GPT, which is virtually the same code. That's the issue here. And especially if that code contains any kind of secrets, any hard-coded tokens.
And there's going to be some in there already by
There's
now, I
always
would
gonna
think.
be something,
Yeah.
right? So if you do that, even by activating that on a separate project and then loading another project, and that extension is activated, you're now sharing, possibly, the content of your entire
should not
perspective?
be allowed. Any enterprise that's worth their salt would say, no, we're not having
I
this.
think what's really important to know here is like don't hard code your tokens.
Yeah.
Your environment variables in your logic. That's the takeaway.
But it's still intellectual property. Even the code itself is intellectual property.
I agree with you 100%. Ask permission. Don't ask forgiveness. Ask permission. And don't hard code your tokens so they will not pop up anywhere. But at the end of the day, it is based on the community. So the more the community will train it, the better it will get. At the moment, it's more likely to get more junior level code entries, and therefore that will also be the output. So Salesforce is counting on the community to help training, but that's up to the legal people to make a decision for each company of their own. If it's appropriate or not appropriate, us as developers don't have code your tokens.
And not just the tokens. I'm an ISV. My code is my intellectual property of the company. I don't want to share that with an LLM so anyone can create a competing product just by asking. Right? However, I do have open source projects that I'm more than happy to share. Or I have answers on, let's say, Stack Overflow. Yeah, of course, go ahead and use that code. Some code I'm very happy to share. Some code is my intellectual property. You have to be able to separate it somehow, and right now this extension does not let you decide what you're happy to share and what you're not happy to share.
But the extension is running in like any extension, I think. You can say it's active.
Yeah, you also needs to be connected to an org that has Einstein for Devs involved, that is connected to a dev hub with that involved as well. So there's 2 or 3 things you have to set up. So it's unlikely to be hit by accident. But yeah, always talk to your legal department. Absolutely. Never do things like this without, as I said at earlier on, read the terms and conditions. Understand what's going on.
And also, this isn't new, right? This is GitHub Copilot.
Yeah.
Pages. There's all sorts of other tools will be doing very similar things, exact same things already. So this part isn't groundbreaking.
Could you spin up? Sorry.
Let's go ahead, John.
Could
We all know where it's
spin up
going.
a dev log that has access to that? And do
That's exactly what this is. So you have to spin up a dev org that's a dev hub, then you can spin up a Scratch org that has this feature enabled, then you can connect to it, and then you can start asking it to generate some code.
then you only put in logic
It's
and
all
things
completely disposable. It's nothing to do with my company. It's nothing to do with anything I don't want getting in
and
there.
then copy
It's all
over
completely
that.
fresh, yeah. Absolutely. Oh, I think that's already been done, in all honesty, as we'll get into in a couple of slides' time.
Based on what was generated.
So let me just jump past that again. Anyone follow Daniel Stangermatt on Twitter? Anyone see this? You can't really see that, unfortunately, but basically he's asked it a question, and I'm going to show you what happened when I asked it the question. And he's saying, and it is a slightly complicated question, but he's saying it's truly dangerous code. It's non-deployable. There's no need to do this. The code doesn't suit, it doesn't do what it was asked to do. It's deleting an account for no good reason. It's got a limit clause of 1 and assumes there's only. So what it generates is fairly entry level and fairly crap in all honesty in a lot of cases. So I thought, well, yeah, but you hear this all the time with all these large language models. Somebody finds an exploit and then that's immediately patched and it's all much better. So I thought last night, well, let's ask the same question and see what happens with Einstein for Developers. So the request is, my org has the requirement to pseudonymize customers' users once they are deactivated. These customer users have the external identity license and are of user type CSP-like portal. Write code that obfuscates the user record, deletes the related person account, and avoids hitting a mixed DML exception. So Daniel found this, a month or 2 ago. So this has been patched. I'm going to get gold standard code. So what do we think of this code then?
It's in one color and it's
Is it? Oh, sorry. So some of the things it does, it's got this. It's figured out we need to hash the email and we need to hash the name. And the way it does it is by putting a constant in front of the name and in front of the email. So hashing doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Hashed name hyphen name. We're in an after trigger, after update. We're in after trigger and it's happily going and changing the records that we're going through. It's done a select inside a loop for trigger.new. And then once it's done all the obfuscation, it then undoes it, which I think is fantastic. Restore the user's email and username. Like, where do you get that from? But I think, to be fair, this is actually quite a complicated question to ask it to do as well. I think a lot of developers... Sorry? It is, yeah, it's word for word exactly what Daniel put in. And it's better, give it that, it's better, but it's not there. But I think if you ask ChatGPT, if you ask the OpenAI APIs to do complicated things with a number of steps, it's not always great. In a prompt, you'd ask it to use chain of thought reasoning or something like that. It's difficult to do when you're asking it to generate code. So I think the thing to remember is this isn't going to write you the really complicated code that's hard to solve. It's going to write you the easy code. It's going to allow people to get big quick. Absolutely. This has come from somewhere. That's the thing. This has come from... But that is the thing. This has been trained on a load of code, that people don't care about exposing to the model, which is going to be all the crap code, isn't it?
You know the old joke, right? When two developers meet during a code review, the lead developer asks the junior developer, "Where did you get this code?" He said, "From Stack Overflow." So he asks him, "From the question or the answer?"
All right, the next thing that's coming is Copilots, your conversational assistant for every Salesforce application. Reminder, as always, we could always have assistants. We just had to pay people to be assistants to those developers, those admins, etc. So, there was a reason we didn't do it. It cost too much, so this might have some cost associated with it. But essentially, it's a chatbot type of thing. But the key thing is, as well as requesting information, it can trigger automation. And you can extend it with skills, which I'm going to try and talk about a bit, but actually skills are kind of so nascent at the moment, it's a bit difficult to say too much about them. But anyway, Copilot Studio is made up of Prompt Builder, Skills Builder, and Model Builder. Model Builder is not very exciting. You've got the Salesforce, you can create a model from using the Salesforce proprietary large language models, or you can bring your own model, and that can be predictive, generative, not really sure how the generative stuff works at the moment. Training and fine-tuning with Data Cloud. Yeah, that sounds interesting. And it's going to support all these various bits and pieces, but I think SageMaker is going to be the first one. That's all going into pilot at the moment, so that's not very interesting. Prompt Builder is a bit more interesting. And the really interesting bit, and this seems to change every time I look at it, but the whole concept of having merge fields in there effectively, and you've got Data Cloud Retrieve, so that can go and pull a graph of data from Data Cloud. There's a flow concept that allows it to go and pull a load of information from wherever you want to get it via flow. So you've got that kind of level of reaching into your system and getting what you need in there. And then what it will do, you've got your prompt. It will show you your grounded prompt. So this is what Data Cloud retrieved data, yada, yada, yada. All of that information comes through and gets passed through the prompt. Because again, don't forget, these prompts don't know, because they don't retain anything, they don't know anything about you, so you have to give them all the information that you need them to work on. Yeah, so this is our grounded prompt, and then there's the generated response. This is the order. Here's the tracking number, so it's pulled that information out of there. And you've got configuration on the other side, and this is where you've got things like the style. I want the style to be casual. What I want from the tone. Do I want it to be long? Do I want it to be short? And then which model do I want to use, in this case GPT-4, which I don't think is actually supported at the moment. So that's Prompt Builder. Skill Builder, this is all going to be a bit random, really, because this is based on screenshots that I managed to grab when someone was demoing this to me at Dreamforce, and I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was just images rather than anything that really exists. But the idea is that a bit like Flow, you're going to be able to add skills, so you have a name and a description for a skill, and that's what's used to allow people to refer to it. So in this case, I want to create a knowledge article, for example, and then you have a bunch of actions that take place when you do that. So this is, from a partner point of view, partner like me, this is where services revenue is going to come from, in this kind of skills, being able to extend, being able to add in additional features over and above what Salesforce does on that. And it will be a bit like Flow. You'll have a palette, which you can kind of see on the right-hand side, the actions. You drag those in, and it will wander through those. And then we had an example of what it's actually doing. Again, see, this was a screenshot from someone who was demoing at a booth, so it's not great. But this is, you've got a completely new user who knows nothing about Salesforce. For some reason, they can update the title and description for accounts. That sounds like you're completely new users, doesn't it? So they don't know how to go and find the account, but they can change it, and they say, update the title. Okay, here's a new account title, and I need a description, go and find one, and it does that. But then this plan tracer thing is quite interesting. I think this is where We've asked it to go and update the account title, so it goes to the CRM records, it gets the account information, pulls back the account title, and I can twiddle that. And it's also come up with a toxicity rating saying that this seems pretty harmless. You've also got these other things. You've got the kind of the sliders of the tone, the personality, casual to formal, comprehension level, yada, yada, yada. How much they're going to be available to users, I feel those are going to be more when you define the skill. You'll put that kind of information in, because otherwise it seems like a bit too easy for them to change things. And the other thing is these skills are going to fit into kind of profiles and permission sets. So you better say, I've got this skill, but this is only available to service agents, or this is only available to sales reps. Yeah, that's about it for skills, really. I say it's all a bit nascent at the moment. Next thing, the Einstein Trust Layer with its guidelines. Guardrails. That's what I said. Give me some guardrails. Give me a bloke on a bike with some guardrails. Look at that. What an image. Anyone seen this image before yet? So it's appeared a few times. So let's look at a few things about what goes on in there. So secure data retrieval and dynamic grounding. So this is based on what I saw at Dreamforce when it was squiggle pling. Now it seems to be 3 squiggles, so when it goes GA it might be something else. But this is the prompt template, so you're a support rep at, and then we've got replaceable there, organization name, contact name, account name. And then you have a flow concept, so this runs a flow to pull the information back that's asking it to summarize the open cases. So when that goes into secure data retrieval, I'm a support rep at the White Hart Hotel. Client is David Brent from Wernham Hog, and the open case is the bathroom is not cleaned in room 362. And the description is, there is no room 262 in this hotel. Sometimes complaints will be false. Any Office fans here? No? Ah, yes, jolly good. But basically what that's gone and pulled information from Salesforce. But this will only appear if I have access to it. So if I don't have access to any cases, that'll just be blank. So you've still got all that kind of baked-in security with Salesforce. So it's pulled the data through. So it's got me some grounding. And again, the model doesn't know anything about me. It doesn't know anything about my organization. So we have to pass all that information through to say, this is what we want you to do. So then we have data masking. So at this moment in time, there's a few things in there that allow people to know a bit too much. So this will be turned into just replaceables, like company one, name one, because the AI doesn't care, that it doesn't know that David Brent is different to name one. It will just return that information. So that's all fine. So that will be masked as it needs to be. So data masking, regardless of where you come from, it'll be looking to mask names, full names, first name, last name, middle name, whatever, phone numbers, email address, locations, credit card numbers, and IBAN codes. If you're in the US, again, very US-centric, social security number, individual taxpayer identification number, driver's license, passport number, bank account number. Things like passport numbers are 9-digit code, so I guess it'll probably mask all 9-digit codes rather than saying, does that match a pattern which is appropriate for a passport number? Same with bank account numbers, so you probably find it will mask a lot of things. And you might get the odd false positive there. But that's the intention behind this, is none of that information. So it's not going to be used anyway. It's going to be forgotten about because there's zero retention on the prompt. However, that information is still being sent, in the case of OpenAI, to the US to be processed. So you could be in breach of GDPR if you send PII over there. Something along those lines. So the guardrails. So the thing we looked at there was the prompt template. That's our instructions. That's our pre-selected data that we're going to use in every case. If we're basing it on a conversation, then maybe some end user input that goes in there as well. But then we have things that go in before the system guardrails. So we'll have, I don't know what these are. These are just words that I gathered from the presentation I was at. But basically, this is just basically putting stuff at the start of the prompt to try and control what it's doing, and then you get another lot at the end, additional guardrails, including prompt injection defense. No, I couldn't get any more details of that, unfortunately. But what this looks like is that you get, so here's my prompt, and then you get these things put in front. So interestingly, so this is based on the demo that I got at Dreamforce, but treat equally any individuals from different socioeconomic statuses. I just think that's really entertaining that today was the first time that I hit something and it came up with pretty much that phrase. So it's basically just saying, trying to guide the AI to behave in an appropriate way. And that's what we want, because we don't all want to have to be putting those in every single time that we do a prompt. You know, Salesforce doing that makes an awful lot of sense. And again, at the end, if you're not absolutely certain about what you're talking about, then better not to say anything. I find actually by the time you've got all these guardrails in, most of the time it's just saying, yeah, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't help. So that's slightly disappointing. And then it will go through toxicity detection. So this is, according to the guys I spoke to at Dreamforce, this is coming in a future release. So it will look for toxicity, it will look for hate, it will look for anything that calls out or disparages people based on their identity. It will call out if there is violence there, if it's threatening physical harm, any sexual or profane words in the response. All of that will be checked for. And there's some rule-based stuff, and again, I think we're going to be able to do some customization around those rules. Similar to the, I think in Chatter at the moment, you can filter out particular words and the like. So I think we're going to have the ability to do that. But then there'll be an AI model that is also trying to pull that out.
I wonder in the future if you will have another layer, like you mentioned this, and you can add additional words that are prohibited in your organization. It will be
Yeah.
into the guardrail.
Yeah, I think that's where the rule-based bits comes in. So that's that. You can already do that in Chatter. There's certain words you can filter out, and my understanding is it's going to be, if not the same interface, it's going to be a very similar interface to that. English only again. And then you have the feedback framework. So after all this has happened, it gets put in front of an agent. So none of this stuff ever happens automatically. It's always got to have someone saying, thumbs up or thumbs down, I want to post this, I want to edit it. And the thing is, because that's all happening in the Salesforce UI, Salesforce know you did this. So this is where they talk about being able to look at outcomes of prompts. So they actually, they can maybe make assumptions, but you could look and say, okay, somebody did some AI-generated emails to a customer, and then 3 weeks later, an opportunity for 3 million quid closed. We can kind of put that together, and I think nothing like OpenAI can do that because it doesn't have the additional information of what happens going down the line. Obviously, you're making a huge amount of assumptions. However, that's then going to go into the feedback store, and that's going to improve the prompt. And that's the bit that I don't really understand, because how's it going to improve the prompt if we're not actually training the AI? So we haven't told the AI anything about whether that prompt was good or not. It has no idea. Salesforce knows that. So maybe it can change and tweak the prompt, but it's not going to get the same improvement that it could if it was allowing the AI to retain that prompt information, use it in training and say, yes, it was good, or no, it was bad. So I think that's an interesting one. Be interesting to see how that plays out over the coming couple of years. Then you've got the audit trail, which again is coming in a future release. So the idea is this is going to be a bunch of time-stamped metadata, which is squirreled away, because transparency, auditability, knowing what happened with the AI, knowing what the AI did is really, really important. And that's going to capture information about the requesting user, the prompt that was sent to them, including all the grounding information, what the response was, what the toxicity scores were, and then also the user feedback. Was the user happy with it, or did they decide that it was no good and they decided not to use it? Again, my understanding is that's all coming in a future release. But I've been saying this since from the word go. I think the Einstein trust layer. Oh, the other thing they said was don't call it a layer, which is quite funny because it's still the Einstein trust layer, but it's baked in everywhere. It's not. Calling it a layer implies it's something it goes through at the end, and it's not. It's kind of in every step. So I kind of get what they're saying, but they need to find a different term for it. Like Copilot and like Einstein 1, they need to find different terms for all of those things. But the whole Einstein trust layer, I think, is still a genius move from Salesforce, because that's what everybody's worried about with AI, is that all their data is going to end up training the model. They're going to lose control of it. And with Salesforce taking care of all this, you don't have to worry so much. You still need to know how it works. Still really important to keep on top of all these things, and as this improves and changes, make sure that you're happy with it, make sure your legal department are happy with it. And the final thing I'd say about this is, I think if you look at what's currently available in generative AI from Salesforce and what's coming, I think it seems to me there's probably quite a battle going on between product and legal. If you look at it now, it's all very basic and there's no real configuration around it. And there's this vision of all these product managers saying we're ready to go, and legal are going, no, you're not putting that out, you're not putting that out. That could go wrong, it could be terrible, it could ruin our reputation. So I think it's one of those things as well that everybody needs to go into it with their eyes open and make sure that they're aware of, not just the upsides, but how it could go bad for them as well. But that is where the Einstein trust layer should help an awful lot. And that brings me to the end. Thank you very much for your attention.